Hello, my name is Jesvia Mahil and I'm a social science researcher and writer. In this session, I will explain how I use thematic analysis to make sense of the huge amounts of data that I collect, analyse and interpret. I usually take a qualitative approach to research with data collected from interviews, observations, photographs and videos. Organising this large amount of data into themes makes it less overwhelming and more manageable. It's easier to interpret and make sense of data when we organise it into clusters or themes. The purpose of this session is to consider 3 questions about thematic analysis. Number 1, what's the difference between themes and categories? Number 2, what is the step-by-step process for conducting a thematic analysis? Number 3, what are some advantages and disadvantages of using thematic analysis? There are various definitions of themes. For example, Braun and Clark in 2006 defined them as patterns of meaning, and Boyatzis, 1998, elaborates further to propose that a theme is a pattern found in the information that, at the minimum, describes and organises the possible observations or, at the maximum, interprets aspects of the phenomenon. Guest et al. 2012 define a theme as a unit of meaning that is observed or noticed in the data by a reader of the text. Whereas content analysis focuses on counting numbers of words and phrases in text, Guest et al. 2012 explained that thematic analysis moves beyond counting explicit words or phrases and focuses on identifying and describing both implicit and explicit ideas within the data, that is, themes. Similarly, Saldana 2014 proposes that themes are extended phrases or sentences that summarise the manifest or apparent and latent, in other words, underlying meanings of data. The premise in these definitions is that themes are based on patterns rather than more quantifiable information which can be placed in distinct categories. Moreover, themes are subject to interpretation, as noted by Abram 2014, who says, once we are in the realm of non-quantifiable knowledge, we are reliant on interpretation, which brings us back to the need to recognise the experience, the skill, and the intellectual creativity of the particular researcher doing that work. With blurred boundaries and malleable patterns, themes are more subject to interpretation compared with categories which are based on more tangible or concrete evidence, such as isolated words and phrases out of context. If your research purpose is to generate theories and if you want to analyse your data for what Glaser says is conveying the credibility of a theory, you may wish to use the constant comparative method of analysis, which would mean placing your data into categories, iteratively shuffling and reshuffling your data. However, if your research is designed to explore data to stimulate ideas, gain insights, or to elicit concepts rather than theory building, instead of using distinct categories and the constant comparison method, you may prefer to allow ideas to emerge from the patterns that you observe in your data and interrelated themes. Saldana 2014 explains the difference between categories and themes by saying that category construction is our best attempt to cluster the most seemingly alike things into the most seemingly appropriate groups. Categorizing is reorganizing and reordering the vast array of data from a study because It's from the smaller, larger and meaning-rich units that we can better grasp the particular features of each one and the categories' possible interrelationships with one another. In contrast, Soldana explains that themes allow us to construct summative, phenomenological meanings from data through extended passages of text. Unlike codes, which are most often single words or short phrases that symbolically represent a datum, themes are extended phrases or sentences that summarize the manifest, apparent and latent underlying meanings of data. Decided whether you want to put your data into categories and use the constant comparison method, or whether you want to cluster your data into looser themes so you can see the emerging patterns, you need to think about the various stages in the analytical process. Researchers such as Knoll et al. 2017 advocate a step-by-step methodical approach to thematic analysis to ensure credibility, dependability and confirmability of our interpretations. Using a similar approach to that outlined by Knoll et al. 2007, we can follow steps to identify and interpret themes in our data. In stage 1, we can search our data for themes relating to our research questions. In stage 2, we can code these themes as nodes, for example, using software such as NVivo to highlight relevant paragraphs in our data. In stage 3, we can use a conceptual framework, for example, the systems thinking framework, to look for additional or emerging themes in the data. In stage 4, we can code these emerging themes as additional nodes using NVivo, for example, highlighting relevant sentences and paragraphs. In stage 5, we can cluster the themes into broad umbrella groups so we can run queries and reports easily. Stage 6, we can use software to run queries and reports with a complex range of combinations of data sources and highlighted themes to identify patterns using our own professional experience and awareness to make relevant interpretations. In stage 7, we can create relationships between different themes to stimulate insights and critical reflections in our data analysis, guided by our research questions. In stage 8, we can synthesize the ideas and the insights generated through the patterns and the interrelationships between themes to create scenarios, profiles, and constructed narratives to express our subjective interpretation of the data. We have to bear in mind that a systematic thematic analysis is a cyclical rather than a linear process. The scenarios, the profiles, and the narratives that we create from the primary source data could be processed several times to elicit deeper levels of meaning and to draw broader conclusions. There are several advantages of using a thematic analysis. It allows us to take the context into account to extract broader and deeper meanings from our data. We can be flexible in taking what Braun and Clark 2006 call an organic approach to coding and theme development, and we can be flexible in shifting our position in relation to the focus of our research. Through a clear and systematic coding using software such as NVivo, we can foster what Richards 1999 and Lincoln and Guber 2007 call trustworthiness in our interpretations. On the other hand, there are also disadvantages in using a thematic analysis. For example, Holloway and Todrus 2003 warn against the essential tension between flexibility, credibility, and coherence. What looks like distinct patterns in our data without adequate explanations to create cohesion may seem to be random information to someone who's unfamiliar with this data. When we organize our data into themes, it can fragment personal narratives in the data, making it more impersonal and less nuanced in containing personal meanings. The narratives contained in long interviews are usually not identifiable in themes when they've been fragmented, perhaps into short quotes, and placed into themes based on research questions rather than the participants involved. This means that we may unwittingly ignore important information that doesn't fit into any of our themes. I set out to answer 3 questions in this session. Number 1, what is the difference between themes and categories? Number 2, what is the step-by-step process for conducting a thematic analysis? Number 3, what are some advantages and disadvantages of using thematic analysis? For question number 1, what's the difference between themes and categories? Well, broadly, themes are more conceptual, interrelated patterns, whereas categories tend to consist of tangible, isolated words and phrases. The step-by-step process for conducting a thematic analysis is a cyclical process which consists of searching, coding, running queries and reports, synthesizing, interpreting, and then searching again and coding and so on. And question number 3, advantages and disadvantages of using thematic analysis. Well, some of the advantages include contextualized interpretations, the flexibility and trustworthiness in following through with a systematic process in analyzing, and the disadvantages are to do with a possible or potential lack of coherence, fragmentation of the data, and possible oversight of data that doesn't fit into any identified themes. I hope you found this video about thematic analysis useful. Please do contact me if you would like further support to make sure you conduct your thematic analysis in a rigorous and robust manner so that your findings are credible and trustworthy. You can subscribe to my channel here and contact me at jesvia@universityforlife.com if you have any questions or feedback for me. All the best to you. Bye for now.